The views and opinions expressed on Smack My Pitch Up are those of the panelists and not those of GUI Network, their sponsors, or any of the properties mentioned. Listener discretion is advised. This podcast is rated R for violence, language, and nudity. Well, it's a podcast, so you won't see the nudity. I just do it to make the guest uncomfortable.
In a world gone mad with unnecessary reboots, remakes, and sequels, only one podcast has the guts to make it even worse. This is Smack My Pitch Up.
Hello, geeks, and welcome to another wonderful science fiction heavy episode of Smack My Pitch Up, the podcast that reboots, remakes, reimagines, sequels, sidequels, and adapts some of your favorite and least favorite properties from film, television, books, comics, and what have you. And this is a episode that is adapting, well, book, movie, TV series, animated, all are from the original novel that this was based on. So there's a lot of different ugly heads on this hydra of a property here, and I'm kind of interested to see
Hydra Beast. Yeah, that is perfect.
Yeah. And I'm kind of interested to see what we draw from on this episode, whether it be the original source material or specifically the well-loved cult classic film that was
the horribly loved,
that was very
bad,
very loosely based on the source material. We're talking about Starship Troopers, the Paul Verhoeven film that is one of the few times in cinema that they expect you to root for the fascists.
Yep.
So that's a hard choice to make there, Paul Verhoeven.
Right.
But he was the king of making some pretty interesting decisions in the 80s and early 90s with his films.
I agreed with every decision he made with this movie.
I do too. I think this film, with me tonight, first off, before we get into the actual conversation about the film and the novel, we've got Jack, my dungeon master, my friend, regular contributor to the GUI Network. You were on last time for the Universal Monsters episode during the Halloween season. So
yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Oh, absolutely.
I love anything that'll scare the pants off people.
No shit. And what was definitely scary is Casper Van Dien's acting in this.
Well, that's the fun part. Is like you got Casper Van Dien's just completely stoic wooden acting going on in the first one, and then you've got his acting in the sequels.
Yes,
which is somehow just incredibly worse.
Yeah. Well, there was something about kind of the satirical nature of the original that kind of fit the wooden acting. The like ridiculous nature of it, of his inability to act, actually fit the kind of tone of the movie a little bit. So it kind of worked.
Yeah. Paul Verhoeven saying he was lifting entire shots from Triumph of the Will. Yep. Like being as obvious as he fucking can be with like, oh, look, the officers are all wearing SS uniforms. Like you couldn't be more on the nose about it. So yeah, considering that the, Aryan poster boy on the cover of the movie, who's, Johnny Rico, in the original book is like probably Filipino.
Right.
So yeah, he's just absolutely ridiculous. And, everybody's turning in just sort of like the most cheesy, hackney, wooden performances of all of their careers. I think the only one who came out of there unscathed was Michael Ironside.
Because he's Michael fucking Ironside.
Yeah, like he's always that character.
He's always that character. And also there's actors in that movie that are known for being bad actors. You got Denise Richards, who has one look. She's got that one smile she does.
Like that look that says, I'm being nice and prim and proper out in the world right now, but I'm giving you this one specific look that says I'm going to rock your world later.
Yeah.
When nobody else is watching.
Sure.
That's the kind of look that she is just perfect.
Nailed. Yeah.
Yeah. Jake Busey, who is a delight.
Horse Teeth McGillicuddy, yes.
Yes. You got Neil Patrick Harris in here, who is just bizarre. I think he was trying to separate himself from Doogie Howser as much as possible.
I mean, it was a good transition from him in a lab coat that was too big to that trench coat that he was wearing that was just clearly too big for him.
Way too huge.
Yeah. But he did a great job. He was one of the few actors in this movie that actually knew how to act to any degree.
Yeah.
Not that it was really helpful who he was acting against, so it's not the top-notch acting that you've gotten from him in other films and TV shows.
Projects, yeah.
Yeah, but I did want to kind of get into a couple of the things that are different between the book and the movie.
Very important for pretty much all the versions I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to admit that I have not read the book.
Okay.
And I know I need to get on that. It's Robert Heinlein that did Stranger in a Strange Land. So well known for several different stories, and this being one of them. And the big differences are a lot of the choices made with the different characters that Johnny, Rico, and Carmen don't actually have any kind of like long-standing relationship in the book. They have a romantic kind of intertwinement, but there's no girlfriend-boyfriend business. The other love interest dude, that's not a thing in the book.
Because the other love interest is actually a dude in the book.
Is a dude in the book?
Dizzy Flores in the movie.
Oh, right, yep.
Yeah, in the book, Dizzy Flores is a guy.
Yep. And also, I think, doesn't have any kind of romantic intertwine. That's a totally different character by name only. Are they connected?
Exactly. You still have the characters are all there. It's just they're not. Their roles are slightly tweaked and merged and shifted around.
Yeah, like Michael Ironside's character, he's a combination of both the teacher and the Roughnecks leader. He was not both. The teacher was the one that was missing a limb, was former military service, but no longer was able to serve. Then leader of the Roughnecks, where his name actually comes from, I believe, was a totally different character, separate. They were
two separate characters, and they just combined them into one. I'm not sure where that decision came from, but it worked for the movie because the movie had a much more accelerated timeline, whereas the book is very loose on having an actual story, because the book is more like vignettes of Johnny Rico's life for the express purpose of Heinlein going off for pages and pages and pages of his rhetoric about why this militarized society in space works, whereas every other system of government is terrible.
Yep.
So it
is weird that this was written in, I think, 1959. 58. And it is definitely kind of a reaction to the Cold War and everything going on with the U.S. and Russia. Yep. I mean, that's pretty blatant.
Yeah, absolutely.
The book really non-satirically is suggesting that like a strong military force is the only way to prevent your version of government from going by the wayside in short order. So it's actually advocating from the American side, but advocating for a strong military industrial complex. Which,
I mean, it was written straight into the text that the story goes that this government came about because the veterans rose up in a violent revolution and took out all the other governments on the planet and said, you're not allowed to be citizens unless you've already served. That is literally how it goes in the book. So it's like it's actually recommending a military junta takeover of the world government.
Right. And so
just absolutely wild.
Looking at that source material and then the beautiful choices that Verhoeven made on kind of not just going with that, but like going with it so hard that he made a satire out of it. Was perfect. And just leaning in so hard.
Yeah. Verhoeven was great about this because he looked at Heinlein's point of view of Heinlein was an American military retiree who was writing science fiction, who went through World War II, who lived through parts of the beginning of the Cold War, and he had a very American mindset when he wrote the book. Verhoeven grew up in Nazi-occupied, I believe, Denmark or Sweden. It doesn't matter. Like he grew up being propagandized by the actual Nazis. So he's like, this is the same thing.
Yeah.
Like the story doesn't matter. The characters don't matter. This is why there was no actual romance between Johnny and Carmen in the book, because it would only get in the way of Heinlein like proselytizing about like his version of fascism being the best idea for humanity.
Sure. And
which
Verhoeven wanted to have more of a tongue-in-cheek approach to it, where he was making fun of that kind of viewpoint of Heinlein in the first place, and turning it on its head. And I think for that usage, having a love interest, having like the classic, you know, space adventure movie trope stuff thrown in there too, is not a bad choice necessarily. I decided to kind of go a different route from the love triangle being a primary focus in the storyline for my version. I made a few changes that were more informed by the original material, and then also kind of in that same Verhoeven way of turning what the intended want of the material was on its head a little bit to match kind of a current conversation.
Yeah, that I did the same thing. Like I absolutely was. I was definitely going like story wise, or at least characterization. I was definitely leaning more on the book. But as far as like intention of the film, this reimagining of it, I was very much looking at Verhoeven's version and why he was making a criticism of the original material. And I think that's a very valuable, like anyone who's going to adapt this text is going to have to wrestle with the fact that it's so blatantly, overtly fascist.
Right.
And you can't get away from it. If you actually read it, you cannot get away from the overtly militarization and fascism like rhetoric that's in it. So if you're going to adapt it, you have to address that. Maybe not like blatantly, but you have to talk about it.
Well, I started to think about like the conversations that we have relating to our military and our government, and how this story itself can relate to conversations that we're having. And what I kind of settled in on was the overwhelming number of low-income teenagers or young adults that end up joining the military versus higher income, where us having a really sturdy military as far as funding and numbers of troops, and the vast majority being of an income level because they want to move up from their station, and sometimes military is the only choice, or 4 years of college guaranteed from service, which that, you know, service guarantees citizenship kind of thing, with education, with being able to get a salary that is well above your expected income from a lot of neighborhoods in the country. And so I figured I would start there as kind of the informing social commentary, kind of laying in the back, is that Johnny Rico is a rich kid in the stories, in all of them, I think.
Yeah.
And
his family is rich from like they're merchants and trade goods and stuff like that. At least in the books, they don't really like give an explanation for him in the movie. They just like, he comes from a rich background, Buenos Aires. You know, that's all you need to know.
And so I kind of took that and used that as a motivation that this is a fish out of water story, where it's Johnny Rico kind of being teased for being rich and being out of touch by his friends, by Carmen, by Carl, and it not so much being followed a girl here attitude so much as him trying to prove that he's not just some out of touch rich kid, that he gets it. He's with the common man. You know, he understands what's really going on in the world. And so that's his motivation, is just to kind of prove that he's not some like weakling, like kid that is only a privileged kid that is just going to be able to like succeed and become a citizen because his dad is able to get it for him, or kind of thing. So it's pride. Pride drives him, which I normally prefer that as opposed to like chasing a girl bullshit.
Yeah, that was Verhoeven. Sort of, he was trying to take what was a fairly antiseptic story from the book, and he was trying to make it more Hollywood. That's where the love triangle comes from.
Sure, and I get that. And also, this was what, like 1990, 91 when this came out. So, I mean, that's kind of an expected thing at that point. So I don't really discredit him making that choice, but I think nowadays that's not necessary so much. You don't need to have that forefront love story anymore to drive the context
the
of the
plot.
story. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where I'm going with my plot. I'm making where, you know, Johnny Rico's a white kid. A lot of the people in service are not. You can have conversations about race. You can have conversations about wealth, class struggle, separations in that regard. That Rico, it goes from a place where he's always taken seriously because he's got that privilege to almost never being taken seriously because of that same privilege. And him kind of learning what the world really looks like before he's able to excel in his position. So,
okay.
And then also learning about, that, was it, Gene, Razak, Ratchek, Ironside's character.
Yeah.
I also casted white because I wanted to have this kind of like, in Verhoeven's version, a kind of background relationship there.
Yeah.
And there being kind of a level of privilege that's kind of suggested that, Rico almost initially regrets being given the reins of the Roughnecks because he isn't even sure if he earned it or not.
Right.
Because he already has recognized how he excelled past other people because of his privilege, because of that previous relationship with his, commanding officer.
His mentor.
Yeah. So him just not being sure whether to even take his own success seriously or not.
Yeah.
And I want to have that conversation in this.
I think that's a good way to take it because, Johnny Rico being turned into a white kid in Verhoeven's version was all about making him palatable and making him more Aryan because of the, Nazi overtones that Verhoeven was going for. In the book, though, like Rico is not revealed to be anything specific as far as like racial background until the very end of the book.
Yeah.
Like the revelation that Johnny is a nickname and his actual name is Juanito is saved until one of the very last pages of the book. And that was an intentional thing on the part of Heinlein because he was trying to address that in this perfect version of his fascist society, that race and gender and background don't matter. It's all about your utility to the state. And that's what's important.
So it's fascism, but it's not Nazi fascism. It's like way cooler than that.
It's still kind of Nazi fascism because but it's just a lot easier to other somebody when they're an alien, an actual fucking alien.
Sure.
Because you've got two different alien species that come up in the books. There's the skinnies and there's the arachnids. And both are pretty much like the skinnies and bugs. Those aren't their actual racial names. That's just what the mobile infantry calls them.
Sure.
And it's very blatantly supposed to be, like the dehumanizing name that we give our enemies in wartime so that we can, do inhumane things to them.
Well, I definitely wanted to have the skinnies in this version as well, because in, the movie, they only have this like arid planet with just the bugs on it that they can nuke and it's fine. Very, very Ender's Game kind of vibe to this a little bit. And I think having this other race that is getting decimated by the Earthlings that are coming through. And in the books, I read up a bit before we started, they had like basically exosuits where they could just like run and jump and jump over buildings. And they had nuke grenades that they were able to throw like extreme distances. And basically it was like scorched earth. They wanted to just level everything, including like whole cities of the skinnies. And if you're already having the conversation about Rico's place in the military and it's the conversation of like lower income, disenfranchised groups, minorities being kind of sent to die for a country that doesn't even want them because they're all so driven towards the quote unquote American dream, the becoming a citizen, becoming, above their current station. Then there's these soldiers that are seeing kind of those elements in the skinnies that are being wrecked by them, by their own armies.
I think it's a great evolution too, because the first species you see are the skinnies, and they're described as being allies of the bugs. And that's why that they're being attacked. But the skinnies are relatively humanoid. They look mostly human, but they look just different enough to where the mobile infantry has no problem. And it goes into very great detail about how they just destroy this and level this city with one troop of the mobile infantry. Like not even a battalion, just like one squad of mobile infantry destroys this entire city of who are essentially just very different humans.
Sure.
Like, and then the later chapters, they go into much more detail about how they fight against the bugs. But the bugs aren't anything like they are in the Verhoeven version. Like they're alien because they have 8 legs and all, but they're not, close to human spiders. They actually are fully intelligent species
Mhm.
with a hive mind. Like they are, even their basic ground troops are on the same intelligence level as humans. And the brain bug is just, kind of like a part of a caste system.
It's like a server, almost.
Like it doesn't go into great detail about it, but
Sure.
it's explained that there's a caste system in the bug society, but even their ground troops have weapons, have intelligence, have tactics. But because they're completely and utterly inhuman, they don't operate in the same way that the humans do. So, again, we other them and, wipe out as many of them as we can.
Sure.
But I think Verhoeven was, making an action movie. Whereas in mine, I want it to be very explicit that the bugs uh, aren't monsters. They're not unthinking,
Sure.
tyrannical beasts that we have to wipe out at all costs. And I want it to be very at one point in the story to be, which is actually revealed in the book as well, that the war started because of human aggression, not because of the bugs.
Sure.
Like they decided to retaliate, and now we're in a war with them.
Well, that's that's a truly human story, but definitely
Yeah.
an American story that just from our history in this country,
Right.
you can identify that kind of relationship of being a natural, unfortunately natural, human uh, way of expansion or being. I definitely wanted to kind of approach it the same way that I wanted to, for lack of a better term, humanize the bugs a bit,
Yeah.
the skinnies as well, the where they're not bad guys. I think we're as film watchers, film and TV has progressed so much at this point that we're able to have that nuanced approach to good guys versus bad guys. It doesn't have to be this black and white anymore. It can be understanding, maybe not agreeing with, but understanding where the bad guy's coming from. I like when that happens.
Yeah.
And so I definitely want to portray it that way. I also really wanted to have that tone of like the most disenfranchised groups of a government
Mm-hmm.
going to fight for that government. The story of like the
underclass.
Yeah, the units of former slaves that fought for the Confederacy, the Red Tails, the Tuskegee Airmen, the disenfranchised groups that fought for this country. And that's a story from all over the world of disenfranchised groups fighting for a country that doesn't even want them. And I want that to be part of this conversation, that like serving guarantees citizenship, that there is kind of like this filter system. It's like this meat grinder that the disenfranchised go through. And if you end up happening to make it out on the other side, then you can live in not even wealth, but just like a normal, held at as a citizen.
And it's that kind of parallel that I kind of clung onto for my version. I don't know how well this is going to translate for you, but I kind of want to do like Starship Troopers, the Smedley Butler story. And to give you background on this, Smedley Butler is one of the most highly decorated Marines in history. He has 2 Medals of Honor, which is bonkers, unheard of.
Sure.
And he was came up through the ranks. He enlisted and lied about his age and enlisted.
Mm-hmm.
Came up through the ranks, became an officer, kind of like Johnny Rico. Like he became an officer after being enlisted, right? And then he continued to gain rank, and he became one of the highest ranking, Marines of his time. And then he retired and went back home. And he was, kind of content to like lead a quiet life and help out veterans and, support veteran causes, especially after World War One, when there was a lot of unrest and a lot of problems for the guys coming back from the trench warfare. And, according to him, he got approached about leading and helping a fascist coup takeover during the Roosevelt administration back in 1932, I believe, or 34.
Sure.
And it sort of awoke him to like the reason why America got involved in like the Banana Wars and a lot of the Boxer Rebellion in China. A lot of these wars were kind of exercised for, industrialists and not necessarily for
Sure.
American causes. And he sort of awoke to that, and the rest of his life was spent pretty much trying to take apart the complex that would allow industrialists to use military might to advance their financial causes.
Oof.
So Smedley Butler had his awakening moment where he realized he had been part of this arm of imperialism, and he had the chance to become a fascist dictator. And he said, "Oh, fuck you people." So I kind of want to do that, but with Johnny Rico, where he's this privileged kid. Same with Smedley Butler. He came from a very privileged family of politicians and like judges and industrialists. And he goes into the military trying to prove himself as being, of tougher metal than his father. And like the whole first act is pretty much Starship Troopers, the book, where it's just fascist propaganda for like the first 20, 30 minutes of the movie. And then, spoiler alert, the end of the book has Johnny, going on his last mission, who has emasculated his father to the point that his father enlisted in the mobile infantry and joined his unit. And like it's led to believe that they go on their last mission together, and one or both of them don't come back from it.
Wow.
So in my version, like Act 1 kind of closes off with Johnny watching his dad get destroyed in this fight, and he comes back to the ship and going like it was part of war. Sacrifices have to happen because he lost Dizzy Flores in the first chapter, and it's like this progression of his character going from naive enlistee, then going through like training to become a lieutenant, and then gaining rank, and then leading his own unit, and then losing his father under his command, like the ultimate loss, of family, of your chosen, of your unit. And then he, in Act 2, kind of starts going where he realizes all of the dead, all of them, Dizzy, his father, everybody, was pointless because the war was started because humans wanted more land. And he helped them do that. And the bugs are just trying to protect themselves, but he's been part of this like aggression war, like killing his own and others for somebody else's interests. Nice. And then Act 3 becomes Johnny like trying to tear down the system.
Nice.
Like that's my version of like how to kind of still be true to the book, but sort of reclaim it.
Sure. And I think just due to the nature of what the book was written for, it wasn't a nationalistic kind of ideology behind the writing of this book.
Like there's points to be made about the fact that, the lieutenant that he works for has a Russian name.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something to be said for that. Like Heinlein was talking about a unified humanity, which is admirable. It's just the way he described it happening is the point where it's like, oh, I don't know about that.
No, that has been somewhat true throughout human history. I mean, it was something that was used by Alan Moore with The Watchmen, of there being a common enemy as being the only thing that tends to draw people together a lot of the time, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I mean, Heinlein's version was, a revolution from the inside. There wasn't an outside threat that really united humanity.
Sure.
The bugs came later, after they had already taken over.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess an argument could be made that a version where a bug's aggression does lead to the fascist state that, all of humanity is united, but we're still racist against, everything else.
Well, I think the bugs with my version, at least, and it sounds like maybe to yours as well, that there will be, of course, bug battles and, action, and there has to be some of that. But honestly, the bugs aren't even the main threat. The threat is from within. It's the system that they're inside that is the biggest challenge. And the bugs and the skinnies and the enemy is representative of the number of, like pointless wars, like you said, the military industrial complex that this country has fallen into time and time again. That's the real enemy. The bugs, the skinnies, they're just cannon fodder. They're just there as an excuse for this, for forward momentum with war.
Right.
And so we should get into our directors and and actors and such. For mine, a director that pretty much anything that he's done, I've been a massive fan of. And talking about kind of class and race and, your place within a society and your responsibilities to the world and your own society from within it has been touched in a couple different ways by the different films that this director has done. I had to go with Ryan Coogler for my director with this one. His conversation in Black Panther between Killmonger and T'Challa about what your responsibility is to your people and your responsibility to the world. I think there is some nuance there that if just that's a little bit of the flavoring that you put into Starship Troopers, you can have a bigger conversation about that.
I think that's an absolutely great pick. I was actually very close to doing the same, but I went slightly different on that one. I still wanted a director who is comfortable with doing action sequences,
sure,
but also has like not even an obvious like heavy-handed social commentary in his films.
Sure, of course, have to with this.
Yeah, and the same aspect of like doing large and cinematic action sequences, but he also does really great at showing, war is not glorious when you're actually fighting it. It's messy. It sucks. People die in very uncomfortable and terrible ways. Not everybody is like glorified in the end.
Yeah, war is glorious 50 years after it's been fought, when people can, people that weren't even in it can talk about how, how cool the people that fought it were.
Yeah. So I went with a director who has experience shooting, gritty war movies. With some great commentary about like what got people into those wars and why we should probably avoid getting into more of them. I went with Edward Zwick.
Okay.
He directed Glory, Last Samurai, Legends of the Fall. Like great shots and sequences for action, but like very, very open and very, obvious about his social commentary along with it.
That's a really smart choice. One thing I do like about his directing style also is that he allows the negative space of the scene to really have its time. Nothing really seems rushed. And with the way
he's got a very Kurosawa kind of feel to him in certain shots where it's just he lets the scenery exist. Like it's beautiful.
Yeah, and especially with something where you're talking about it being like a space epic, you can have that, shot of the fields of the dead, but also there's going to be such a glorious tapestry of landscapes in this movie that to be able to have a moment to kind of like really feel the environment, I think is a smart move.
Yeah.
So hell yeah. All right, well, if you want to kind of go down your casting list for this version here.
So we got to start off with Johnny Rico, and we talked about like race representation of the character. Now, I liked your point about like keeping Johnny being a white guy in an army of mostly colored people, and I do appreciate that visual cinematic language to it. But I kind of wanted to go back to the original book with Johnny, and it's a great reveal in the text when you find out, oh, he's not a white guy.
Sure.
But I don't think that necessarily is going to serve as well as like his awakening to the political reality of what he exists in. So I went with trying to get more of a cast that represented like where they were from in the original text.
Sure.
So for my Johnny Rico, I went with Manny Jacinto. You see him in The Good Place. He's the Buddhist fake monk. I forget the name.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's in The Good Place. He's at Bad Times and at the El Royale, and apparently he's going to be in the new Maverick movie. I'm actually looking forward to seeing it now because of that.
Okay.
Because I was totally not interested until
he played Jason in The Good Place.
Jason, that's it. Yeah, he's amazing. He's actually a very talented actor, and if you've only seen him at The Good Place, you can kind of chalk him up to being a clown.
No, that's one of those things that, like, to play that dumb and sell it, you have to be pretty smart to be able to do it. It's like Steve Martin clapping out of time. You've got to have pretty good rhythm to be able to clap that out of time.
Yeah. And not to mention, it's also, like, about, like, how going back to Verhoeven talking about how he's lifted shots from Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will. All of the Nazis that you see that you get a full face shot of in there are all the pretty Nazis. So all of the pretty fascists have to be front row and center for the mobile infantry in this. And yeah, Manny is fucking just gorgeous. He is a very pretty man.
His bone structure is stupid.
Oh, it's just amazing. He's so hot. Just moving down my list. After Johnny Rico, you've got Dizzy Flores, who plays a different kind of role in the book versus the movie. Although, I wouldn't mind having a romance arc with, with Johnny and Dizzy in this version too.
Sure.
Fine, true, go for it. I'm actually upset with myself a little bit for doing this because it kind of plays into a trope. But I wanted to have Dizzy Flores played by Ian Alexander, who is in the OA, Star Trek Discovery, and is one of the voice actors for The Last of Us.
Okay, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, so I just wrote Dizzy Flores, who is the character who very prominently dies in the book as another queer character. So great.
Yeah,
I did the trope. I am so sorry, but actually, I think Ian Alexander is also a very talented actor, and I'd love to see them really tackle this. But yeah,
sure. Well, also, I think that kind of extends something that's kind of touched on a little bit with Verhoeven's version about there being showers that have both men and women in it. That there's a complete co-ed kind of nature to things.
Yeah, and if you that was in the text with the whole they don't care about those things in the future. It's not about that. It's about your utility to the state.
Sure.
So
if you just kind of give it a little light touch like that with Dizzy's character, then you're just kind of alluding to that further as well without having to, mallet on over the head with it. So
right,
yeah.
Next we've got Carmen Ibanez, who I want this character to be a little more prominent than she was in the book. She's in 3 scenes in the entire book, but I kind of want her to come back for Act 2 and 3 and be part of Johnny's sort of awakening and revolutionary mindset. So she becomes more central. But again, I don't necessarily need the Verhoeven romance arc to happen with this character. I went for casting Shannon Sassaman. She was Jocelyn in The Knight's Tale. She's in The Sleepy Hollow, the TV show.
Oh, Shannon Sassaman, yeah.
Yeah.
She was in Rules of Attraction, I think, as well. Yeah.
40 Days and 40 Nights.
Oh, that
yes,
garbage pile of a movie.
But yeah, I think she's again, pretty. So that helps with the whole idea that all of the mobile infantry and the prominent fascists in this version are the pretty ones, because that's part of the whole recruitment poster of it.
Sure.
Because the first act is going to be fascist propaganda, and then it sort of falls apart when Johnny starts to realize how gossamer thin the actual through line is.
Sure.
Moving on down, we get to Ace Levy, who in the books is just Johnny's XO and his right-hand man and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much fills the same role as Jake Busey did with Ace in the Verhoeven movie. This is where I go back to, I want the original character kind of idea. So this is pretty much one of the only white guys that you're going to see in the mobile infantry in this version. And I want him to be played by Josh Hellman. He was in Fury Road. He's the recast of Colonel Stryker in the X-Men reboot movies.
Okay.
Very, angular, very militaristic looking dude,
sure.
Especially when he gets the haircut. I think he would just excel at that, at being, the right-hand man in a mass genocide friggin' combat situation.
Sure.
He looks the part, is what I'm saying. Next, we get Carl Jenkins, who is Johnny's best friend growing up. And then in the books, they kill him off. I don't necessarily need that version, that to happen either. I think I can lean back into he's one of the psychics with the Federation.
Sure. Now, if I remember from what I read, he wasn't psychic in the books. He was like a tinkerer. He was good with technology and inventions.
And he got sent to the moon, to the Pluto base, and he got wiped out by the bugs in like one of the first chapters with, off screen. Like his life didn't matter. It was all about motivating Johnny to continue fighting. I think but Carl being a psychic, it was actually something they picked up for the TV series, the Roughneck Chronicles.
Okay.
And they had him as part of the mobile infantry as a psychic. And there is a psychic who works for the mobile infantry in the book, but he's unnamed. So, kind of like blend all three of those characters in together, and you get like my version of Carl Jenkins, who I want to be played by Renzi Feliz, who's in Runaways. He's pretty much the main geek in that one, and he's in Teen Wolf, the TV series. Great actor, good young kid, but he looks like a nerd, and that's kind of what I want Carl to look like. I want him to be the nerdy hanger-on to Johnny's, action hero type.
Sure.
Moving down, we get Charles Zim, Sergeant Zim, played by the immortal Clancy Brown in
love Clancy
Verhoeven
so much.
version. This character is kind of ambiguous, but he still is like one of the central characters because he's the one who captures the brain bug in the end. That is directly from the book. So
yeah,
Zim taking the loss of position as one of the instructors at the infantry school to become a regular line soldier, so that he can execute the final plan. That's all from the book. So I went with Ken Yamamura to play him. He plays the young Yoshida in the Wolverine.
Okay.
He's in one of the newer Godzilla movies. He's also in he's in Black Mirror for one of the episodes there. Talented guy. Again, just pretty, which, kind of the idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the last character that I really wanted to cast.
I do want to point out, though, that you are really going out on a limb here of people sitting for 2 hours watching pretty people on screen. I know that's a really, I know, iffy choice there you're making.
Yeah. I mean, I just know what I would sit through.
Yeah, right.
And, I think it works.
Yeah.
I did go back to Verhoeven's version for Ratchek and combined him with Colonel Dubois, the teacher.
Okay.
But as sort of my throwback to the movie for casting, I went with Clancy Brown as being.
Oh, nice. I like that. I like that a lot.
Of course, original Star Troopers. He's the Kurgan and the Highlander. He shows up in the Punisher. Like, he's in everything.
He's in the Mandalorian.
He's in the Mandalorian. He's in Shawshank Redemption.
He's in Pet Sematary 2.
Gargoyles. The cartoon. Yeah. He's just in everything. Yeah. Just everything.
He's got an unmistakable look and also voice. His voice is
that voice. So
perfect.
Epic.
Yeah. So
all right.
Nice.
So yeah, there I did kind of play around with casting Johnny's dad, but he's really not a major character.
I didn't even cast some of the a couple of the better names or better characters from the Verhoeven version because they weren't as important in my version.
Mm-hmm.
Or they didn't exist in my version.
Which is fine.
Dizzy, for example, I did not cast a Dizzy because the version of Dizzy that we saw in the film is not there. It's probably closer to the books where it's just like a side character that dies early on, isn't really, is maybe a motivation, but it isn't as much of an important character to the plot.
Their name would not show up on the poster.
Sure. So let's just go from the top down here with mine. So this is Ryan Coogler. Black Panther, Creed 1 and 2, Fruitvale Station. Great, amazing. Having listened to some audio commentary of a couple of the movies that he's done, the absolute thoughtfulness of everything in his movies it's a level of skill and intent that I can't even grasp. It's insane. Oh yeah. It's absolutely insane. So
absolutely.
I got him for Johnny Rico. This is a white dude that came from privilege. His family doesn't really want him to be in the military. He feels like he needs to kind of prove himself that he's not just this upper class elitist prick, that he's kind of been shoehorned or pigeonholed into being. And then he ends up kind of realizing through his trials and tribulations that he realizes his privilege, and then he tries to use what privilege that he has for good, to like kind of make things better for the people that don't. And that journey I thought would be very interesting to see by Nicholas Hoult. If you are familiar, he plays Beast in the in X-Men First Class and Days of Future Past. He is was it Nux?
Also in Fury Road.
Yeah, he's in Fury Road as Nux, and that was really where I got informed from, is that somebody that has bought in completely, and thinks of the world a certain way, but then when you're out there and you're in it and you see what the landscape really is, it takes a certain kind of willpower to, in that moment, change your mind, because you see what the world really is like. So, and also Nicholas Hoult can definitely play. There's what's the name of there's a period comedy on Hulu that he plays like a king or something, and he's just this piece of shit. And so he can play like the entitled royalty card a little bit. I want him to be like a kind of pretentious piece of shit at the beginning of this, and then the character arc is him like losing people and getting in the shit and really earning his perspective. And the people that are going to help him earn his perspective, Carmen, who is a love interest, but also doesn't really take him that seriously because he doesn't really have a lot of experience in the world. And so just it's never really considered him for anything other than like, good time and somebody that's like nice and she gets along with, but not actually interested in. I worked with him on Creed 1 and 2, and an amazing actress, Tessa Thompson as Carmen.
Yeah, beautiful.
Also,
beautiful
not just a gorgeous woman, but also like just
deeply talented,
and like emanates independence. That's why she works so well as Valkyrie in the Marvel universe, because she just has this like, oh no, I got it. Don't you worry, I got this covered. And you need that for Carmen. Carmen in mine is definitely going to be kind of career focused, but not in the like, she didn't buy into the propaganda thing so much as that she has a lot of skills. She's naturally talented.
Yeah, and I think the important thing for the love interest, especially if you're going with book Carmen, is that she doesn't need the validation of a love interest to like make her world whole.
Exactly. Also that.
And Tessa Thompson has done that in quite a few movies of hers, where like love interest is a thing, it's a presence inside the film, but it doesn't validate her existence at all.
Exactly. Yep.
Which I think is very important to get Carmen as a character to come through.
And Carmen was just a foil in the Verhoeven version, which again, this is early 90s. I get it, but it's not necessary now. You can tell a better story not using a character that way. Tessa, I think, will be doing a great job that as being a naturally talented, intelligent woman that joins the service because that's, a way of actually being able to use those skills. There's not a lot of other opportunity. And so doesn't really buy into the propaganda, isn't part of the propaganda machine so much. It's just that's one of the few options that she has available to her to do what she wants to do. Then we've got Ace, who, like you said, is kind of like the sidekick, the right-hand man to Rico. And I thought it'd be very interesting, especially both with size and temperament, attitude, if you've got like a gentle giant type character to play Ace, just a big dude that has just like almost a kind of a chill, I got this, instead of goofy like Jake Busey played it, have it more just like affected less than other people by the shit that's hitting the fan.
Right.
I thought Winston Duke would be very fun Ace for that role.
Fantastic.
And also just a giant man. So him next to Nicholas Hoult, who's not short, like he's a tall dude, but he's scrawny,
lanky.
So to see thick with two thieves Winston Duke next to Nicholas Hoult, there will be definitely some pretty strong contrast. And then also you can use that as like you used to think of yourself as having all this power, and now you're in a position where you're the same level as the rest of us, and that kind of like playful intimidation that Winston Duke puts forward as what's in Black Panther, M'Baku.
Yeah.
Of that playful intimidation, I really think would be a lot of fun in that kind of role.
Absolutely. Then
we've got Carl, who is kind of best friend to Johnny, is really motivated, similar to Carmen, only it's not it's not propaganda driven either, but it is definitely in a kind of an angrier approach to it, that he knows what it is. He has a clearer view of what the military is, what he's doing, what his service is being used for. But he has this attitude of like, it's either me or them, like a kill or be killed kind of attitude. And it's like, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to get to where I need to go to accomplish what my goals are. And if people got to die, people got to die. So the skinnies, the bugs, like anybody that are found to be under his boot, so be it. Just like has this, his motivation supersedes his humanity. Is how I want to play Carl. And of course, as the arc happens, that becomes more and more prevalent as the story goes. That's not constant throughout. He's a little bit more human at the beginning of the story, and through his service, the
character evolves.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a character arc or something.
Yeah,
and I think, especially with this actor, just outside of his talent as an actor, him having kind of that same attitude about being an actor, that this is the dude that shows up. This is a dude that puts the time and the energy in, is absolutely 100% motivated to be the #1 actor and puts everything into it. I've seen a bunch of interviews of him talking about that. And also very much in Ryan Coogler films, Michael B. Jordan as Carl.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
As the one not to be fucked with. Like, you do not get in his way. I think he would do that very well.
Yeah, absolutely. He carries that very well in pretty much everything I've seen him in, especially the more action-oriented pieces. I think, though, the one that is probably more analogous to all this is it's not a great movie, but Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah, not the best. No. That's a hard adaptation anyway, so it is kind of a high bar.
It really is. But I think he delivered a very good performance about a guy who is going through like that idea of, I need to do this because it's what needs to be done to, preserve us and me and my position and all this. And then like he sort of starts wakening up to it later.
And that's how I kind of want to play his character in this as well, as the waking up to it later, where, Johnny kind of realizes along the way the dangers of what they're doing, because he comes from an outside perspective where he's not in it the whole time. He starts to realize the plight of the soldiers that he's fighting alongside with. And then so he has a direct correlation to what's happening with the people that they're fighting. He sees it from a totally different perspective. And so by simply having that perspective, it allows people that that may not have seen it before to get what's happening. And so he's not really leading people towards a revolt necessarily, but it's kind of like a crack in the wall kind of thing. And one of the most resistant is gonna be Carl. He's a company man. He's career. And
here's my question: is Carl still the I grew up around you friend that he is in the original?
I wanted to kind of put it that's how Johnny knows Carmen, is that through somewhere in their childhood, Johnny and Carl got to know each other. Okay. And then over the years, they ended up going to like college and stuff together. Because, they kind of grew up around each other, not from the same neighborhoods. It was just kind of a happenstance of being friends. But there was always kind of a little bit of a rift between them based on kind of their avenues in their life, that Johnny was definitely better off than Carl ever was.
I think that will play in very well for the third act when they ultimately have to have the confrontation. Yep. It says like, dude, you need to step back.
And then also that like you've always thought yourself better than me. Like even now we're in the service and like I'm higher ranking than you and you still think you're better than me. And just that like boy who cried wolf kind of attitude towards Rico, even though like it's for real this time, like this is bad, like you need to stop. But just having grown up with him, always thinking that he knew better because he was privileged, because he came from a higher class. That when there is something that actually makes sense, he's unwilling to hear it. Right. And I think that'd make a really interesting dynamic. Then we've got Sergeant Zim. And I love this woman to death. I'm doing a gender swap on this one.
Okay.
I didn't recast a lot of women on here besides Carmen. I thought it'd be kind of interesting to have like the direct below Ratzek as a just like loud, brash, don't you fuck with me female like officer. And worked with Coogler on Black Panther, has been in everything ever. Angela Bassett as Zim, as a like, and I'm thinking about like the throwing the knife scene. I'm just like Angela Bassett is just like casually able to fuck people up. Like
I like that a lot.
And then you have the kind of that attitude of like, you know, she's not a big woman, but still is able to just school the fuck out of people hand to hand, can throw knives, like that. There's this attitude of like, I had to learn how to be better than everybody else because of where my station was as a woman.
Yeah.
And so you can have like that an underlying conversation there with that as well. And then
I like that.
Ratzek, I again wanted somebody that could do the military role, could definitely have a previous like relationship with Rico, whether it be the teacher route or a friend of his father. I thought would be more of a better move. You do like the the wealthy and the military both kind of like going to the same parties kind of vibe.
Right.
I thought it'd be interesting to see what Carl Urban would do with that role.
Oh, he'd be a beast. Absolute beast.
And it'd be fun to see kind of that you're rooting for him kind of, but you're also realizing that he is kind of a piece of shit too.
Yeah.
And Urban's done that. So
I mean, he's done the fascist hero before. He played Judge Dredd.
And also he was in Chronicles of Riddick as well, as part of the I know. I don't like to bring that up too much.
No, it's a good fucking turn for him. I just don't think they really utilized him as well as they could have.
No,
I think Dredd used him better. I think as much as I like to harp on the new Star Trek reboot movies, I think he did the best bones that you could ever have hoped to get.
Agreed.
Besides getting DeForest Kelly back from the dead. I mean, like he doesn't have the stature of the man, but like God, he nails the attitude perfectly. So like I think Carl Urban is deeply talented actor, and I love to see him in anything I can. And you know, the fact that he can just like turn on that I'm an asshole, but you agree with me because I'm right, but at the same time I'm kind of a dick about it, so you kind of hate me. Like he plays that very well.
Yeah. So I think that would be a really fun choice for that character. We're running a little bit long, so I think just kind of knocking out the fun take.
Oh yeah, mine doesn't take a lot of explanation.
Mine doesn't either. It's the fun take is never something you really got to get as deep into because like your motivations are entirely for your own enjoyment anyway. So it's not actually important. But so for your fun take, your remix as it
so for my remix, I think I don't know how well aware everyone else is, but The Incredibles is pretty much Ayn Rand for kids. So I want to make Starship Troopers Fascism for kids and make it a cartoon. And like fun little actiony, you know, cartoon freaking movie. And to get the just absolutely nail on the head feel for it, I'm gonna get Brad Bird. Incredibles, Iron Giant, Ratatouille. All of these movies have like this sort of like underlying political like criticism going on.
Sure.
That you don't quite see, but like if you like deconstruct it and through that lens, you it becomes pretty obvious.
Yep.
So for Brad Bird's Starship Troopers, you know, fascism for kids.
Okay.
We get Johnny Rico, played by Dante Basco, who was in Hook. He's he's one of the very talented voice actors in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and in one of my personal favorite movies, But I'm a Cheerleader, where they send him to pray away gay camp. Anyway, for Dizzy Flores, Gail Garcia Bernal, who is another deeply talented voice actor. He was in Coco. He's got a great turn in live action in Mozart in the Jungle. He's just incredible to watch. Very soothing voice. So I like that. Carmine Ibanez, Olivia Thirlby. I already brought this up. Dread. She's also in Juno and the rebooted The L Word.
I've not heard anything one way or the other about the new L Word either.
I think it's more geared towards the generation after us. I don't think it hits quite the same notes as the original L Word did for a lot of us, like millennial or
starting
Gen
to
X
notice that
queers.
with a lot of television, actually. It's definitely not written for my my generation.
It's different. I'm not going to call it good or bad. I don't think I'm the target audience for it.
Fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah. Going down my list, Ace Levy. I wanted somebody who could be like confident and goofy. So I went with Bradley Cooper.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Yeah.
Hangover, Limitless, A-Team. He's got a great. His voice comes across his attitude very well. Like you could have me completely blind and I could tell what he's emoting just by voice alone, which is very important for animated films. This is my throwback casting for Carl Jenkins. I went with Ryder Strong, who voices Carl Jenkins in the Roughneck cartoon.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay.
Yeah. If nobody recognizes the name,
Boy Meets World?
Boy Meets World.
Wow. I'm both impressed that you pulled that, and I'm also impressed that I knew who Ryder Strong was. So yeah.
Good call. For Sergeant Zim in this one, I wanted somebody who could have a very aggressive voice, but who's also very bombastic. So I went with Dave Bautista.
Okay. Solid.
WWE, Guardians of the Galaxy, the new Blade Runner, like great voice, amazing voice. And I think he really turns on the comedy charm in the Marvel movies. I think I'd like to see a lot more of that in a like lighthearted version of the boot camp sequence.
And I know that Bradley Cooper and Dave aren't going to be too mad to be working together again.
Oh hell no, they're going to be just absolutely all for it. And again, combining Dubois and Ratchek, I wanted somebody who was like warm and fatherly. So when he gets lost, like not necessarily killed because, kids movie, we don't see him chopped in half like we do with Michael Ironside.
Right.
In this version, I want him played by Jimmy Smits. He was in The West Wing. He's Bail Organa in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
He got his real big break in NYPD Blue. Beautiful voice. Yep, there we go. There's my Fascism for Kids movie.
You know what? And I was just complaining the other day that we're not teaching kids fascism early enough. If we could just really get in there sooner, that'd be better. So you're doing your country's work right there. Teaching kids.
You're welcome.
Fascism's the right way. I also went with something a little bit more child appropriate, kind of in my approach to this. I decided that what if you got a studio that decided to make this movie and looked at kind of the base level of it and didn't think about any of the political stuff that went with it whatsoever, and just casted somebody that could have a lot of fun with all the creatures, with the different landscapes, and didn't really consider that this is not about fun creatures. This is about something else. And I kind of figured it'd be interesting to see what Tim Burton would do with Starship Troopers.
That's oh my god.
Where you play it kind of like using a lot of the lens choices and lighting that was in Miss Peregrine and Big Eyes for On Earth. When it, like fuzz filters and everything's kind of like bright and clean and normal and almost like 1950s, and then you go into the stratosphere and into space, and it's like going down the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland. That everything is like hyper saturated color and whimsical and weird and creepy.
Oh my god, I just can't. Just the tonal dissonance of Tim Burton trying to do gritty action fascism.
Yep.
Just wow.
But you do, instead of like the whole Starship Troopers story, you do basically kind of part of it where they're stuck on this planet without any kind of way out. And they kind of learn that the bugs aren't the monsters that they're made out to be. And you do kind of like the fantastical take on them, kind of ended up making friends with like a little dog-sized bug that like follows them around. And you just like pull out whatever fucking trope. It doesn't matter because the studio doesn't care as long as there's like big spiral like coloring on the back of the bug's butt and glows in the dark and maybe a musical number. Fuck it, who cares?
Yeah, sure. Do it. If you're gonna do this version, balls to the wall.
And
right?
that's exactly what I'm going with the casting as well. I'm not giving a fuck at this one. So
this is gonna be a train wreck.
It's gonna be total train wreck. So for Johnny Rico, now for age appropriate, you couldn't do Johnny Depp. You wanted somebody a little bit younger than that. So, but don't you worry. So for Johnny Rico, I actually went with Asa Butterfield, who was in Miss Peregrine's Home for Imaginary Kids and was Ender in Ender's Game as well. So it's already fun.
He's a tad young, isn't he?
He's a little bit young, but that's kind of how I want to play it, where his fish out of water is that he's just a little bit smaller than the other guys, you know?
Right.
That
because the regular story kind of takes Johnny through a few years, so you're just kind of keeping with his fresh recruit.
Yep. Kind of early days, and he's in his like early to mid 20s now. The actor, yeah.
Jeez,
time flies.
Oh my god.
Then we've got Carmen, the love interest, and I also went with a alumni from Tim Burton and went with Mia Wasikowska. She played Alice in Alice in Wonderland.
Okay.
So she's a little bit older, and in this version, they aren't like schoolmates where they went to school together. It's more like friend of his friend Carl.
Okay.
So it's kind of met through acquaintance. So there's it's not that much of a difference in age. I think it's only like 4 or 5 years between the actors' ages, but it's enough that
they'll play fuzzy with the ages anyway. That's how casting works.
Yeah, usually. So just a fresh-faced, friendly, happy character that gets in over her head and then somehow just kind of magically ends up making things work out well. Kind of that whimsical Tim Burton-esque kind of vibe of, you have no business doing the thing you're doing because you're underqualified for it, but somehow you kind of pull it out at the end and it works kind of attitude with this character.
Right.
Then Ace, I saw recently yesterday the Danny Boyle film, and I absolutely loved it. And the main actor, Himesh Patel, was amazing. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think he had the right tone for Ace, where he's got a little bit of a kind of a dumpy attitude about things. Like he's the guy that got picked on a lot, but he's still like actually a pretty decent dude. He's just a little bit awkward, and he's a little bit too aggro about stuff. Like, just too into it because he, maybe didn't have a lot of friends growing up, or there's something. But he is overall like a decent dude. And I think Himesh would do that relatively well. He had a little bit of that. He was more of like the dumpy attitude in Yesterday, but I think he could totally kind of turn that to just being like kind of a hyper aggressively friendly to people.
Yes.
And go that route with it. Then we've got Carl, the best friend growing up. So I wanted to play a younger actor there as well. And an actor that is killing it right now, is doing so well, that is about 5 years away from some major scandal that's going to blow him out of Hollywood and for 10 or 15 years. And he'll develop a drug habit and end up doing like really low budget indie films and then have a comeback in his like early 40s and be able to kind of like
Robert Downey Jr. style.
I think he's probably going to Robert Downey Jr. I just have a vibe from him. Timothy Chalamet.
Okay, that's a dismal prediction.
He's already had Armie Hammer try to eat him on screen in Call Me by Your Name. So him and his jism in that movie actually.
Yep. Thanks. Didn't need it.
No problem. So Timothy Chalamet is Carl. So dude, that's just like he's charismatic. He seems to have all his shit together. Everybody else is trying to figure stuff out, and he always seems like he kind of is one step ahead of everybody. And so that's kind of how he's going to play it. Then Sergeant Zim, grizzled old soldier that is just never really gave up the fight. Michael fucking Keaton, I think, would have a lot of fun in that role.
That'd be fun to watch, actually.
And he would go pretty big with the character, and I think that works for Zim's character. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And then, of course, Ratzak, you've got to, in charge of the whole shebang, you got to throw Johnny Depp in there.
There you go.
Yep.
I knew you were going to get him.
Of course. He's the mentor, the one that kind of guides them along their way. So,
of course.
So yeah, that's my Tim Burton's Starship Troopers.
Oh Lord. Yeah. Oh God.
So when he's done filming Beetlejuice 2, he can jump right on board with
Yeah, sure. That when he does Superman Reborn too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fuck it. Why not?
Yeah.
Nothing matters anymore. So we've got two quick mashups before we get into our trailers here.
Okay.
The first one from our good friend Michelle.
Of course.
Michelle Left Eye, as she's known on GUI. I just think she threatened to burn my house down once, so we just start calling her Left Eye.
That works.
We've got, this is a weird choice, Year One.
What?
I know.
Do they get blasted back to the Stone Age by the bugs at the end? Is that
the one thing I was thinking is that if you just did where like maybe the Federation, the army isn't from Earth, but is from some other human planet, like that humans, and then Earth is still happening, and it's just like galaxy far, far away kind of vibe.
Wait. Actually, there is a thing for this. There's a planet in the books that doesn't have any of the natural radiation that Earth gets from its sun. And the reason why they don't want to settle there is because humanity won't evolve the way it does on every other planet because there's no radiation exposure. So there's no impetus to evolve on this planet.
Oh, so you get
human colony dumped on the planet. Million years later, the Federation is still going strong. They've conquered the bugs, and humanity has regressed into the Stone Age on this one fucking planet, and everyone's a dumbass.
That's amazing. That's perfect. You did it. I did not see that happening. That was a challenging choice. But then you have kind of like in their whole biblical, voyage of time thing they're doing in Year One. There's also, a bug war and spaceships.
Yeah.
Because fuck it. Why not?
And that's just the one weird cult of humanity believes in the bug war and the spaceships and shit. And everyone's like, you guys are nuts. Nobody believes this. What is wrong with you? That is totally outlandish and weird. And why is that bug coming over here?
Right.
That is a big bug.
That's at the end. There's the whole trope of them, like a spaceship going across the sky, and when somebody looks at it, it's already gone. Them trying to prove, no, there's people in the sky. They have these, magical wheelbarrows that they move through the sky in or some shit.
They wear suits and they throw nukes.
Exactly. So, wow. Okay, Year One. The other one is a little bit more approachable. Gotta thank Morgana for asking this mashup here. Firefly.
That makes sense, actually.
That very doable.
Because, the idea that humanity is this one completely united empire and federation is, like clean and easy if you're only telling the story from a soldier's point of view.
Sure.
But it makes plenty of sense that there's going to be elements of humanity that did not fall in line with the whole, fascist regime. And there's going to be, that renegade ship that's always trying to dodge the fucking war. And
if you think that there's one thing that everybody's going to get behind on this planet, we couldn't get behind the Earth being round. So
yeah,
like if we can't get behind that, then we're pretty hopeless on everybody agreeing on something, anything, literally anything.
Well, I think the idea that, humanity gets into its own little civil war and has to put down a rebellion makes total sense with a fascist regime.
Sure.
Like, I totally see that there's like these colonies of Earth that, slightly stretched out of their freaking means to keep the propaganda and the suppression up. And then eventually a few of them band together and like, we're going to secede from the Federation. It's like, nope.
Also, if you're talking about during a time of war, if there are people that are detractors from the mentality of this major government, when they're distracted by a major war against another enemy besides you, that is the time that those people motivate. when the vast armies of this, fascist government are distracted by a giant bug aliens.
Yeah.
So I think it would absolutely work. I think it could work as like the next natural storytelling moment for Firefly after the movie. You could have them, within a period of 10 years or something, discover aliens, and the alliance is the Federation, and they kind of tighten their stranglehold even more after the things on Serenity.
Yeah.
And then fight the bugs, and then you can have that just natural progress. Yeah. You've got psychics in both. I mean, it's
right.
Even to the point where, if I remember correctly, there was for the Serenity movie, there was the scene at the end where all the troops came in with their guns. And there were two things, one of which is that some of them were holding cameras like they were guns, just to get coverage in the shot. And additionally, a lot of those helmets were actually Starship Trooper helmets.
Yeah,
they used in the movie. So
the rifles and the helmets have been reused and reused and reused by studios. So like you could make an argument for pretty much any of the times that they show up that it's a Starship Troopers sequel.
Yep,
it's a sequel or whatnot.
Exactly. So that fits pretty well. All right, let's get into our last little bit before we say au revoir to this episode here. We've got our trailers. I think I'm going to do a whimsical Tim Burton joint on my trailer.
I think I'm going to do Fascism for Kids.
Okay,
trailer.
Cool. So we're going with the remixes on ours. So let me get the music queued up.
From the twisted mind that brought you Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, and Ed Wood, comes a new imaginative take on the Heinlein classic Super Troopers. Join Johnny, Rico, Carmen, Ace, and Carl as they traverse the universe looking for adventure and insight into their who they are as people. They fight against bugs and the complications of friendship and unite together to bring joy to the Federation. I'm losing steam. Federation, and along the way they make friends of all shapes and sizes. This Halloween, don't space out. Go on an adventure of a lifetime with Tim Burton's Starship Troopers, starring Asa Butterfield, Mia, you know what? Just everybody that's in all of the Tim Burton movies. That's who's it's starring. Coming to a home theater near you. Straight to DVD.
I lost steam really quick on whatever I was trying to do there.
You called it Super Troopers.
I did call it Super Troopers. Okay, you know what? Fuck it. I don't even care.
Fuck it. Why not?
Now I'm kind of interested to see what a Tim Burton Super Troopers would look like.
No, now I'm interested in a Starship Troopers meets Super Troopers. That's the mashup we should have done. Right there.
Oh my God,
like
that would have been amazing.
Screwball comedy in the middle of a genocide.
They're just like galaxy police that are just making sure no ships are speeding while going through.
Just like, okay, take Life is Beautiful, but make it even more grotesque.
Oh God. Wow.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Oh no.
Yes.
All right. Well,
that's the worst mashup right there. There it is.
Your punishment for coming up with that idea is to now do your
Fascism for Kids.
Fascism for Kids.
Continue with the train.
Yeah. This fucking. If this doesn't get us canceled, I don't know what will. So.
Oh man, let's work. Let's do this.
All right. You ready?
No, but let's do it anyway.
All right. Here we go.
In a world where every man is a hero, where the strong are needed to defend the way of life of all humanity, a war will begin out there in space against inhuman monsters, spiders, bugs, and the strong will stand to defend us, all of us. This summer, Brad Bird brings you the incredible story of Starship Troopers, starring Dante Bosco, Gail Garcia Bernal, and Olivia Trilby, with Bradley Cooper, Ryder Strong, Dave Bautista, and featuring Jimmy Smits. Do you want to know more?
There it is. Yep. Definitely better than mine, though. I set that bar as Amy puts it, in hell. So,
no, like I just started like pulling from Umberto Eco's like fascism for the through lines about like what propaganda works for fascism.
Well, I will tell you that the name of this episode is definitely Fascism for Kids. So I can't be not
fantastic.
That. Yeah. So let's see how many angry letters we get from parents. And our response is, why are your kids listening to this show? Jesus.
Yeah, seriously.
So yeah, thank you, Jack, for joining me on this journey into the universe that is Starship Troopers, not Super Troopers.
Yes.
And if you like the show, definitely rate, review, subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. When you review us, when you rate us, it makes us show up a little bit in the standings, lets other people notice us as they're looking through podcasts. So we do appreciate it if you do so. Make sure to check out the other shows on the Geeks on the Influence Network at GUIPodcast.com. We've got, I don't know how many shows at this point. I think that it changes daily at this point.
Yeah.
How many we have. So
exponential growth of shows on the network.
Absolutely. And we've got all our links to our social media on the website as well. So join our social media. We send out messages asking for mashups, asking for ideas for future episodes. So it's a great way to interact with us and maybe even get a suggestion for a future episode done. So if you have a movie or a TV show that you really want us to play with, then that is horribly ruin terribly. Yeah. Then that is the best way to get in touch with us. So join us next week for a shortlist episode, the mini-sode that we do every other week, and we'll find you next time. I'm Mike the Hobbit, and you just got pitch smacked.
GUIPodcast.com.
My name is Amy Bogard.
And I'm Mike the Hobbit.
And we are the hosts of Deeply Upsetting, where we use our expertise to answer your most upsetting hypothetical quandaries, such as, what non-winged animal deserves wings?
And what body part deserves a secret mouth?
Which cryptid is the worst roommate?
These questions and more that plague you will be answered on Deeply Upsetting, available anywhere you get your podcasts and at GUIPodcast.com.
Coming straight from the mouths of madness, I'm Lowdown.
I'm F.U. Hunter.
Do you love horror?
We fucking do.
So this is a podcast dedicated to all things in cinematic horror. We're talking movies, television, composers, special effects artists. We're gonna fucking cover it.
So if you love horror,
embrace the madness.
Hey guys, Scotty Big Daddy Preston here. That's right, the Geek Father, asking you to join me here every other week with friends and family of the GUI Network as we go through all the trials and tribulations of being a geeky parent. So remember, join us or cry.